Okay, hello, welcome to this video. So in our most recent session we did an exploded diagram and we rendered that exploded diagram in Photoshop. So here we are right now in Dean Park House project, okay, and the first thing we did was we duplicated the 3D view. So this is my 3D view. I'm right clicking and selecting duplicate view, duplicate. So now I have two views. I'm going to rename this view. I'm going to call this Exploded. Enter. Okay, so this is exploded. I'm going to use the view cube to get a new view for this 3D view. So I'm going to right click on the view cube, orientate to view, floor plans, and I'm going to choose the 6th floor. There we go. This is great. I can use my shift and middle mouse to rotate around, and here we have my 6th floor. Okay, so I have the section box which I can shift upwards, and I'm going to take that down just a touch. Okay, so we can move that around. We can use the view cube to set that to an isometric orthographic view, and this looks really good for our exploded diagram. So to explode our view, we are going to click on elements like the roof and then use this button here, which is displace element. So I click on that. I can then use these arrows, the blue, green and red, to move the position of these elements. So I'm going to select the roof, click displace element, and then move that up. I think somewhere like that would look good. Okay, I am going to select this wall and let's displace this element by clicking the red. There we go, that looks good. I want to select the door, so I'm going to have to use my tab key to select the door. Let's displace that just like so, and finally I'm going to displace 3 of these windows. So I'm going to hold the control key, select those, and then choose displace element by grabbing the green arrow there. Okay, so we've displaced these elements, and let's have a look at 3D view. Yep, that's still the same. So we've got this completely different 3D view that we can use for a render. So let's have a look at some different display options, so visual styles. I'm going to choose hidden line, and I'm going to click on graphic display options. I'm going to choose the shadow section, open that up. I'm going to choose cast shadows and show ambient and apply. Okay, that's good to have the shadows, and I'm going to close that. Now in this diagram we can see that we have some textures that I want to get rid of, so I'm going to right click on the wall, select all instances visible in view, and I'm going to override the graphics in view by element, and I'm going to turn off the surface patterns. Click OK, and you can see those surface patterns are gone. I'm going to do that here as well. Override graphics in view by element, turn off the surface patterns, click OK, and then I'm going to do the same with the wall sweeps. I'm going to select them all, right click, override graphics in view by element, and turn off the surface patterns. Click OK. That looks good. The other thing we can do with our exploded diagrams is we can add paths. So when I select one of those displaced objects, I can choose a path here, and I'm going to add these dashed lines in place so we can see where elements have come from. Okay, put them on the door. I'm going to add them to the window frames here. That looks good. One more there. Okay, so we've got those sort of travel lines. I'm going to do the same thing here. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay, so these are some different styles that we can apply. That looks good. One of the things that I've been playing with is the shadows, because when we're in Photoshop and we're rendering this out and making it look nice, it would make it a lot easier if the shadows were in a different direction. And I found something under the Manage tab, which is additional features and sun settings. So inside of here we've got by default sunlight from top right and some sunlight from top left, and you can apply those and you can see how it changes your visualization. But I've created my own one. I've copied one of these and I've adjusted the azimuth and the altitude of the sunlight. So I've chosen this setting here, and you can see that I've got shadows that I think we'll be able to recreate much more easily inside of Photoshop. So we're going to try that. I'm going to click OK. Now you'll remember that there is a crop box going on here which we need to see so we can make adjustments, because it tends to be quite a portrait view. So I'm going to adjust that, dragging these elements up and hide that shadow, something like that, and that's good. Now I can hide that again, and I think I'm going to hide the section box as well, so I'm going to choose hide element. There we go. So the diagram's looking quite good. I'm going to save this, and we do that by going to File, and I'm going to export, move down this section here, Images and Animation, and choose Image. So the important things here, I'm going to save to my OneDrive, but I'm going to choose Zoom, and I'm going to type 100%, and the resolution is going to be 300, and I'm going to click OK. This, see the destination, Dean Park House, that will do. Save and OK. So that was one of the options for saving an image from Revit, but another option would be to render in the cloud. So you could go to View, Render in Cloud, and we could continue here. If you're signed in to your free student account with Autodesk, you'll be able to render in the cloud, and you can see that I'm choosing the 3D view that's called Exploded. I'm outputting a still image. The quality is standard. I'm going to increase that to 9 megapixels, I think, and that's going to be 5 credits. But if you have a student account, you should have unlimited credits. So I'm going to send that through, and that's going to upload to the cloud and start rendering. I can check the progress up here, and I can see my other renders. That's a really useful technique, and especially if you have lights inside your Revit project, it'd be interesting to see what sort of renders you get. Anyway, let's have a look in Photoshop at what we did. So I'm going to open up Photoshop now. We've got a picture of me, and I can place that in to Revit, into my visual. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and let's have a look inside of Dean Park House, date modified, Dean Park House 13, click open. So here we have a my 3D view inside of Photoshop as a JPEG. We can zoom in, Control plus. We can see we've got very good resolution. I'm at 100% now. That looks great. So basically we added a few textures using some layer masks, and we played with creating some shadows. So let's do the same thing here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to click my folder ArcViz, and I'm going to choose my nice wooden texture, click Place, and here is my wooden texture. I'm going to zoom out. Now this texture is too big, so I'm going to reduce the size of the texture, move it down, and in the session we duplicated the layer several times. Make sure I have the move tool selected to increase the size of this swatch. Fortunately, this swatch does a really good job of tessellating, so let's create another copy there, and I'm going to merge those together. So right click, merge layers. I'm going to move those over. I'm going to duplicate again, drag that down, snap into place, and merge those layers as well. Okay, so this is an isometric view. I'm going to reduce the opacity so I can see what's going on, and I'm going to use the drawing as is to transform and scale and skew this texture so it fits in with my visualization. So let's go to Edit and Transform, and I'm going to choose Rotate. So I'm going to rotate and try and find the same sort of angle as the walls. And now I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and choose Skew. And I'm going to grab this anchor point here and get that down just right. And now I'm going to go Edit and Transform, Edit Free Transform. And let's shrink this down to fit the model. Somewhere like that. Now I'm going to need it to overlap those windows there. So I need it around about there. I'm going to press enter now, and I'm going to bring the opacity back up. Okay, and there is my floor. I'm going to poke it in the eye and hide it for a moment because I need to start making a selection on top. So let's go to the background layer and let's zoom in, Control plus, and I'm just going to pan around this image. So this is the flooring. So I'm going to click here, 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 to this point, to this point, down to here. I've actually got this column in here as well, so I'm going to draw around the column, and just like so. Now I need to add some elements, so I'm going to use the modify selection tools at the top. So I need to add in this bit of floor here, and it would be floor seen through this window as well, and this one. So each time I click, I'm not holding any keys because I've got the add selection tool selected. If you position something wrongly, you can always just press the backspace and modify your selection. This one. And we're going to do some larger sections here where the windows have been exploded out. Using the spacebar to pan around my image. Click. And there we go. One more large window opening. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's look at this bit here. I think that is close. Yeah, we're actually just seeing the window frame there, so I'm not going to include that. Now that I've done that, I'm going to turn this layer back on, and I'm going to apply a mask by pressing this button in my layers panel. So there we have our layer mask, but it doesn't look very realistic because we can't see the shadows we had previously. So let's turn on the blend mode, multiply. There we go, we've got our shadows, but you can see that I've made my columns are the wooden size as well. So I'm going to make a couple more selections. So I'm going to click here, here, and around the edge of these columns. There we go. I'm going to use my add selection tool just to select these three columns together. This one as well. Okay, and I'm going to use a standard paintbrush, and I'm going to use the black here. So I'm going to increase the size of the brush with my square brackets and just brush those out in the mask so they're back to their original color for the concrete columns. Okay, let's press Ctrl D to deselect. And there is my material looking pretty good. And yeah, this is looking quite effective. Another thing we looked at was adding a person. So I'm going to go to this image. Now, you could make a selection with the polygonal lasso tool. You could zoom in and start making a selection around a person to cut them out. Now, fortunately, I've already done this in preparation, so I am going to just copy from that. So I'm zooming out. I'm going to turn off this layer, and you see I've already cut out myself, ready to go in. So I'm going to use the move tool and click and drag into this image. I'm going to make sure that I select the right layer. Let's try again. There we go. Now all I have to do here is use Ctrl T to edit transform and shrink myself down to really quite small, to the right sort of size to fit in with this project. Something like that, and press enter. Now the thing that makes me look like I'm not really in the image is the fact that I don't have a shadow. So to make a shadow, we're going to need a copy of this person, being me. So I'm going to drag that down here to create a new layer. I'm going to use my Magic Wand selection tool, and I'm going to click outside of myself and then press select inverse, because with this copy I want to turn it into a shadow. So I'm going to use my paintbrush and black, and I'm just going to paint in to create the shadow version of myself. I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to put that under my first layer, but I'm going to press Control T to edit and transform. Now the key shortcut you need to remember is the Control key, and that's going to let you click and drag your image so that it's in the same position as the other shadows in your visual. So I'm just going to drag that up there, something like that, and press enter. Now the shadow's looking pretty good. It needs to have the opacity changed, something like that. It might also benefit from the same blend mode as the other things that are going on here, so I'm just going to reduce that down just a touch. Now the other feature that we looked at was field blur. Okay, so if we go into filter, go to the blur gallery, choose field blur. In here, if I zoom out a little bit, we've already got a blur pin. I'm going to add that in just over there and zoom back in here. Now the blur here is too strong, so I'm going to reduce that down, and then I'm going to add a second pin around about here. Not too strong, but just a little bit, and that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to render that, and we've got a little bit of blur in there. And the last thing that we applied to the shadow maybe would be a layer mask, and we can just use a gradient. Let's have a look here. Let's drag out a gradient somewhere like that, just to soften it up just a touch, something like that. That's looking good. So let's zoom out, and you can see our figure is looking much more like they're in context, that they're in the right place. So we had a lot of fun with doing our render, our exploded render, using the cloud renders from Revit and the export image from Revit, the shadow information from Revit, and then bringing in different textures and sort of artistic flair in Photoshop. So I'm just going to open up one of my other files. File open. Let's see what we got here. There's an ArcViz and this one here. It's just downloading, and let's take a look. So I think that shadow information works really well. Of course, you could apply wall textures and other sort of paintbrush effects. So this is an example. We brought in some photographs of some of our own sketch models into the project. You can see here I've got this screwed up piece of paper, and it's got a shadow in there. We've got the wood texture. I've applied some translucent color sheets in there, and we put some color background just to add some contrast. And yeah, these exploded diagrams look really good. I'm really pleased with the results. Got brick texture going on the wall there, and you can see the layers really build up. They really stack up with some different masks and all sorts of things. So I really hope to see some more of your exploded diagram renders. I look forward to you experimenting. I hope you take these processes further, and look forward to seeing some really exciting developments. So thanks for taking part in the session. Thanks for watching the video, and see you next time.